So let's talk about the difference between the 2D, 3D, 4D, and 5D consciousness. Now, D is simply a density, which is the level of consciousness that one is operating from. Now, let's first of all start with 1D. So 1D is the level of consciousness of pure existence. This is when the thing is simply existing and it doesn't have awareness. Now, things that exist in the 1D will be like things that are like just existing. Let's say my shoes, my clothes is purely existing and it doesn't have some form of an awareness, but it is that level of consciousness. Now the 2D is the dimension of awareness. Now beings living in the 2 dimension of consciousness are actually aware of life and everything, but they are not aware of themselves, right? So they have some level of awareness, and things that are living in this density of consciousness will be plants, right? Plants can hear, plants have awareness, plants can hear us talk and all of that. We have animals on the higher level, right? And one thing you want to know about these is that there are different levels of sub levels in each of these densities, right? There's lower density and then there's higher 2D. So it's like lower 2D will be maybe plants and all of that, and the higher 2D will be pets, right? Home-based animals that are associating with human and that are pretty more evolved than the plants. And we move now into the 3D. Now the 3D is a 3D physical reality that we live in right now. It's what we also call the matrix. So it's what we are engaging with every day. This is the physical world, and it's the dimension of matter, time and space. So all of these that we are interacting with, my body and everything that you see, this is 3D. And the level of consciousness here, it's all more about very separation consciousness and ego consciousness. So beings living in this dimension of consciousness will be more in survival, trying to stay alive. They will more be aware, right? They have awareness, but now no longer like the 2D awareness, they have self-awareness. So they are aware of their individuality, they are aware of their singularity, and this is where the I, me, my kind of comes on. And because of this, beings who are operating in the 3D are very ego-driven, they are material and possession-driven, and this is where people are going to do all kind of way to get what they want. Another thing about the 3-dimension consciousness is that it's rooted in duality, right? It's rooted in polarity. It's people operating from this consciousness will either be this or that, good or bad, black or white, Republican, Democrat, red and this, positive and negative. So there's always a flip side, and people who are operating in 3D will find it very, very hard to be able to hold the duality of things. This means that they would either say, oh no, I'm a Christian, I'm not a Muslim, I'm a Muslim, I'm not a Christian, I am black, I'm not white, I am this, I am not that, over holding two. So but when you are beginning to evolve, you start being able to hold duality. So the 3D is the realm of polarity and is the realm of separation, and as a result, the ego is what is really driving here. This is why before your awakening, most of the things that you desire are simply just the ego, because it's in the matrix. Everyone is surviving, everyone is in the ego, and everyone is just chasing in this materialistic, egoistic, and separation and duality world. People operating in this consciousness will be finding it very hard to be able to hold 2 opinions or 2 perspectives at the same time. They are so attached to what they believe and what they want and who they are, and they see that they're separate from everyone else, and everyone else is right, wrong, and all of that. As you evolve, then you move into the 4D consciousness. So the 4D consciousness is actually the intermediary consciousness between 3D and 4D. And the people who are in the 4D consciousness, this is when you are beginning to wake up, right? And this is the people that I work with. This is when you are beginning to question everything about the metrics. You're beginning to know about things, because the 4D is actually the mental and the astral plane, if you want to look at it in terms of dimensions, right? So a dimension is a plane of existence. Density is level of consciousness. And I did a whole 1-hour video, 1-hour podcast episode on my podcast teaching this. So you can go on my bio and go listen to that podcast called The 7 Density of Consciousness and the Multidimensional Planes of Existence. So people in the 4D, this is more about the mental and the awareness, right? So it's here. So when you begin to have the 4D awakening, most people, when they begin awakening, they are here. It's when you're questioning everything. It's when you start healing, when you start unplugging from the matrix, seeing all the lies in the matrix, and you start doing a lot of inner work, healing, purging, because your emotions and your mind and your will all are living in the 4D. So when someone is there, they are so focused on these things, they are beginning to believe that, hey, they are not just a mind, they are not just a body. They are beginning to not identify with the 3D and seeing that there's a life beyond. The more than life beyond, they are really beginning to heal their trauma. And they are beginning to know about oneness. Like, you know about oneness, you've heard the concept of oneness, and yeah, this is where you're really doing the inner alchemy work. You're working on your limiting belief, working on yourself and all of that. But the thing is that when you're in the 4D, you're still identifying with the ego. Because when one is in the 4D, you still think that you are the mind, you see yourself as the mind, and the ego is still kind of like driving. So there's this sense of separation. But now you're beginning to consider other perspective and see that, hey, it's not just Muslim or Christian. You can be Muslim and Christian are both right. Like, you're starting to begin to consider that, but there's still some form of polarity, ego, and all of that is still there, because you still have the mind. Then now we move into the 5D consciousness. So the 5D consciousness now is where we are heading to, and this is when life becomes euphoria. Like, if everything becomes so easily and everything becomes so sweet, because the 5D consciousness is all about oneness. So in the 5D, there is really no separation. It's the dimension or the level of consciousness of unconditional love and unity, oneness, and then light and love. So in the 5D, all that there is one. I don't see myself as separate from you, from the plants, from the earth, from animals. You awaken to the truth that you are one with all things, and because you're one with all things, there is really no separation between you and every other thing. And because there's no separation, you start living from the heart, right? You start seeing everything as part of yourself, and you start living in loving relationship with all things, and in devotion to all things, and devotion and service to others, because actually serving others is serving yourself. So you stop having this shield and this being in survival, like in the 3D trying to be in survival, and you start living in pure bliss. And when you are in this state of consciousness, this is when manifestation becomes so effortless. It becomes so effortless because you realize your oneness with all things. Everything you're trying to manifest, you start realizing, hey, it's not out there. It's not even just in me. It is me. It's everything is me. So you begin to notice that you start living more in humility, more in the heart, and you start being able to hold all perspective. You stop trying to think that this person is wrong, Christians are wrong, Muslims are wrong, these people are wrong. You start realizing that, hey, everyone is just having a perspective based on their level of consciousness. So you start being very mature in the way that you hold perspective, because you see that all is just an expression of oneself. And in 5D, this is when your life becomes easy. You're just living, you're fulfilling your purpose, you're supporting the world, you're helping other people awaken and ascend, and you're creating this beautiful impact in the world, and you are living a very authentic life, very authentic and free, and your sense of worth is no longer attached to the things or material world like the ego in the 3D, those in the 3D do. That you've become so grounded in who you are, and your energy and your aura becomes so pure and so loving. So there's just that you become a light that is shining, and at this phase, this is when you really become your authentic self, your true self, beyond the conditioning, beyond the ego. And this is when you start noticing your ego. When you stop identifying with the mind, you no longer think that you are your mind or your body. You start seeing yourself as who you are. But more than that, your heart center is open, because 3D is this physical outward world, 4D is the mind, and 5D is living from the heart. So if you're living based on your mind, limiting belief, inner work, doing your healing trauma, that is still 4D. But it's important because we need to pass through 4D in order to ascend to 5D. So if you're on this journey, I'm glad and I'm happy that you're here, because this is where we are going to get you to the place where you become a walking manifestation of everything you desire, to get you to the place where you're fulfilling your purpose, creating the impact, changing lives, and actually just living and enjoying, having a very free and authentic life, and everything you desire chase you. This is what this is all about. So if you're this interested in such content, just hit that plus button and go to my podcast to subscribe to get all the teachings on this full episode of the podcast. And also, let me know in the chat what dimension or what level of consciousness are you currently operating upon. And here's the thing, just to conclude, none is better than the other. All of it is just here for us to ascend. And as we ascend, we move even to the consciousness. These are all level of consciousness available to us. So it has nothing to do to boost your ego to feel like, oh, I'm here. No, but just let us know, just so that we celebrate you on your growth journey. We are all just walking in progress. Nobody is better than another.